Hey, HCDA, and today I want to show you Terrascape, which is a nice little puzzle game where you're building a city, and it's a perfect game to relax and basically play something that still requires you to use your brain, but is not quite as complex as some of the other games I've been showing on the channel recently. So give it a shot if you want, because it actually comes out today as of the day that this is going live, out of early access into full release. So the 1.0 release is here, so you can actually get your hands on that if you want to. But if you are wondering what the game is about, let me actually show you. So there's a couple of different modes that you can play. There's the kingdom mode, in which you can just build a giant city and try to get as high a score as you can get. There's the scenarios. I will be playing one of those in a moment, where you basically get tasked with certain objectives and you try to fulfill those. And then there's the Puzzle Terrace, which is an increasingly difficult set of puzzles you actually need to solve. That works very much the same in terms of the gameplay as I will show you in the scenario mode in a moment. But as you can see, there's quite a few steps to be taken here and quite a few puzzles to solve as a result of that. But I am going to be playing a scenario. Now there's different types of scenarios. The maps are randomly generated, so you can actually replay these scenarios and kind of challenge yourself in that way. There is certain bonuses you get for completing the quests, as well as the side quests that you get on top of those. And in every scenario, you're going to be playing with different decks. So there's a total of 12 different decks in the game, which will decide what you can actually build in a particular level. But you only get access to certain decks in these scenarios. So we're going to be playing the second scenario. The first scenario is kind of like in a tutorial introduction type of thing, where we'll get access to 3 decks, 2 of which I actually haven't played with yet, so you can figure that out along with me. And let me just dive in and explain how the game plays as a result of that. A kingdom can only flourish if it is rooted in a robust society. For this, we need villages and cities in which the townsfolk can thrive and are supplied with important goods. We should make sure we have plentiful supply of good timber to carry out our ambitious plans. So basically, we are tasked with building a giant city and getting some wood along with that. And again, the maps are randomly generated, but it looks like we have a pretty decent layout for that, because there is a lot of forest on this particular map. You can turn it on and off if you want, if it's annoying you, but it's quite useful to know where all these resources are, because that will impact how we are actually going to be playing. The map again is randomly generated, so I'm kind of just looking around where I want to place my headquarters, because that is the first wing we're going to need to do. I am thinking that maybe somewhere in a corner might not be a bad idea, because we actually need a lot of room to set up these villages that it's talking about. At least that's what I think we're going to need. So let's just place it over here, kind of in the middle, but next to the forest and kind of out of the way, so we have these open plains over here to work with. Now, the first thing we will do is kind of walk you through the interface. So we have a couple of quests over here. The 0 out of 16 is basically the counter for completing these quests below, the green ones. And these are the main quests that we want to succeed. So we're not just going to be randomly building, we actually need to keep an eye on what the game is trying to tell us to do, because otherwise we're not actually going to be able to finish the level. Now, in order to build anything, we're going to need to select a deck. And in this case, apparently we can only pick the settlement deck. So that is what we're going to be starting out with. Now you can see the different decks have different requirements, and they kind of work together. There's kind of a technology tree thing going on over here. And the more points we score, the more complicated decks we can unlock, and the more complicated things we will be able to build. But for now, we're just going to be using the settlement deck. Now, every deck has different cards in it, but initially it starts out very simple. So right now, we only have the cottages card available in the settlement deck. So we're starting out really basic, but actually the first moves in the game do have an impact later on, so you don't want to just start building at random. Now, what we need to do is place cottages down with a rating of gold in order to complete this first assignment. Now, before I do that, let me walk you through this interface down here. Over here, you can see the level of our keep. Once we fill up this bar, we can level up and we can select a new deck to go along with the one we already have. Over here on the right, you can see we can draw once from our deck, and in order to make sure we can keep doing that, we need to fill up this bar. So basically, we need to make sure that every card we place down gets us a high score so we can get more and more draws, because if we're out of draws and we can't place enough cards to get a new draw in return, basically it's game over and we haven't finished the particular level. Now the good thing is that every time you complete a level you do get some experience, you unlock some new cards and things like that, so there's kind of a roguelike element to this game as well. But for now, let's just focus on not running out of cards. Then on the right over here, you can actually see different combinations that you can make. So for example, if we place 4 cottages down together in a shape that looks like this, it doesn't need to be necessarily in this particular shape. It can be diagonal or upside down or whatever. Doesn't really matter for this shape, but there's other shapes where that does matter. Then we actually have these buildings merging together into a longhouse. Now you might be wondering, why do we want to do that? Well, first of all, it gives more points usually, depending a little bit on the shape that we use, but you also get some additional rewards. So for example, if we place down a longhouse, we actually get a card that allows us to remove a resource from a tile. Not necessarily something we want to be doing all the time, but it can be useful. And on top of that, it generates a rural on the surrounding tiles, which again is important for giving new buildings bonuses. So let's draw from the settlement deck. And let me show you how those bonuses work. So cottages actually benefit from being on a rural ground. You can see on the left side over there. So building a cottage next to a longhouse is going to give us additional points. On top of that, having a longhouse in the range that you can see on the right, or different buildings like for example a fruit farm, a farmstead and stuff like that, actually gives us additional points on top of that. So if we want to get in as many points as we can by building cottages, we need to make sure that they're ideally close to other longhouses, so we kind of want these things to stick together. Now we get 4 of these cards and you can see the range over here, and as you can see, depending on where we place it, if we place it on arid ground, we get 10 points. If we place it on grass, we get 0. If we place it close to a river, we get even more points. We can get up to 30 points over here. Now, we do want to keep in mind that we also need to build this in a particular shape. So if I place my cottage over here, I do get 30 points, but since I can't actually build a cottage on a river, it's just going to get stuck there and it doesn't give us any further points. On the other hand, if I place down over here, and place one over here, and then one over here, and then one over here, look! Now we not only placed 4 cottages with a gold star rating, we also upgraded one of them into a longhouse already, giving us a lot of points. And as you can see, we actually can draw 3 times from our deck already, and we just placed down the cards from our first draw. So that's a pretty efficient first move. Now we need to create another 6 longhouses, so that's a little tedious. And on top of that, we need to unlock the houses in the settlement deck. Now, how do we do that? We need to keep upgrading this settlement deck, and that's basically just a matter of scoring points with placing down cards from the settlement deck in order to level that deck up and get access to some new buildings as a result of that. What we're going to do is draw some more cards from our deck. Hey, look, it's cottages, because that's literally the only thing that's currently in our deck. Oh, I can't actually build on top of that. What's in the way over here? So this is stone. Interesting. So what would be a good position for another longhouse? I think just over here is just fine. Now, remember, the order in which I place these buildings is important, because if I place this one down over here, I get only 5 points, but if I place this one first, and then I place this on, I get 10 points. Not a huge difference, but it does matter, and those things do add up over time. Now we just leveled up our deck, and now we have access to a new card in our settlement deck, which is called the Well. Now the Well, again, wants to be close to a rural area. It wants to be on a rural area, I should say, but it also wants to be close to other places where people live. So longhouses, cottages, and so on. So actually, because the bonus from a cottage and a longhouse is equally large, it makes sense to place it down to between a lot of cottages, for example. So actually placing some cottages in between these rivers and then a well in the middle of that might actually not be such a bad idea, if that is something we want to do at some point. In the meanwhile, we also have enough experience to start upgrading our deck over here, so we can add a new deck to the mix, which is the Forestry, which allows us to start building a lumberjack. Now let me check that out. What does the lumberjack actually do? Let me just draw from the deck to get a feel for it. It wants to be on a thicket or grass, which makes sense, and it also wants to be close to a forest tile, so we have plenty of those up here. What's really important is that it does not want to be close to another lumberjack, probably because, well, these things are kind of competing with each other. So that is important. We want to kind of spread them out and we want them near the forest. Now we have plenty of forest up here, so that is not a problem. However, rather than just randomly starting to build lumberjacks, I'm actually going to focus on our mission first, because again, this is a puzzle game, so just randomly building is not going to be very efficient. We still need some more longhouses, and we still need to unlock the houses, which means we need to score more points with the settlement deck. Now remember, because we now actually unlocked the well, we are getting random well cards every now and then, so it's important to keep that in mind as well when we're placing these down. And it's actually really useful because we can fill up these kind of random gaps that we left over here. And this is going to give me 55 points, which is definitely not the worst. As you can see, we are about halfway through the third level of the settlement deck. So I'm guessing that if we just keep building some long houses, we should be getting close to unlocking those houses pretty soon. You also need to keep in account that the terrain might work against you. So as you can see over here, we have these kind of cliffs happening, and buildings won't actually merge together if they are on different heights, at least not if the height difference is too much. I'm not entirely sure if this height difference is too much for my cottages to be combined with each other. Let's find out. Nope, this was still working, but if the height difference is too much, like for example with these steep cliffs over here, then that does actually get in the way, so you do need to take that into consideration. Now I have another well or two to place, and I have this open space here in the middle, and look at that. 85 points for a single well. Awesome stuff. Okay, so that's a lot of longhouses built, but again, not just built randomly. They put some thought into making sure they went into the right spaces. And now we get the assignment to create a royal forest. Now, you might be wondering, how do I do that? And this is where the cheat sheet over here comes in. Because, for example, now, because we unlock the forester, we get told, hey, look, you already have the well, you have the cottage, you have the lumberjack. So you need to discover yet another building in order to make this particular combination. But we don't know what that building is yet, but we will get notified as soon as we actually get access to that particular building. Now I checked all the different combinations, but apparently we don't have access yet to anything that allows us to build the royal forest, because we can't actually see what will make a royal forest for us. And we also do not have the required buildings yet to make a city district that I'm aware of, or actually, never mind. This is the city district. So now we have the house, so we can start building some of those. It's interesting, again, that when you build a city district, it's similar to the longhouse, but again, the combinations will become more and more complex as we go. If you build a city district, you actually get a free house card in return. So that just makes sure that you have another opportunity to get some points, and make sure you don't run out of draws. On top of that, we get access to, once again, a card that will allow us to remove resources on surrounding tiles, so similar to this one actually. And we also get urban on the surrounding tiles, similar to what we had when we were building the longhouse. Now the difference is that it's not rural, it is urban, which will affect different buildings, so again, something we need to take into consideration. Meanwhile, we also upgraded our town hall, so now we can get access to the third deck, namely the community deck, and that will allow us to build a tavern. It's worth noting that every time you upgrade your keep, it actually changes shape as well, so it becomes more and more impressive, and it actually gets you some points as well. So let's draw from the community deck and see what a tavern actually does. So this wants to be on a rural or arid. So again, rural, important being in this case. So basically, we first want to make sure we build a city district and then build a tavern next to that. And on top of that, the tavern is going to benefit from being close to a city district. But interestingly enough, it's actually going to benefit more from being next to a longhouse. So what we can do is basically combine those two, maybe build a city district, for example, over here, and then place a tavern in between all of that. Let's find out if that actually works like I'm hoping it is. Okay, so I needed to spend quite a few of my draws to get access to enough buildings to actually build this, because remember, you get random buildings or random cards selected from the deck that you pick, so you might not necessarily get the buildings that you want, which again is where the puzzle element comes in. Why is this giving me a higher score? It wants to be, oh, it does not want to be on a rural area. That's interesting. And let's see, it loses points from nothing, but it definitely loses points from being rural. So basically people in the big houses do not want to be living next to the long houses over here. That said, we might just want to place one of these down to make sure that we don't lose out on too much of that area. I'm actually wondering if this will shift into a urban area once we finish the city district, but I guess there's only one way to find out. There we go. This is actually a pretty interesting city district over here, and you can see, yep, now this actually turned into urban. So again, order matters, because if I would place a longhouse next to this would turn back into a rural area. Now we can place a tavern over here, and look at that, 70 points from a tavern. And is that actually, oh, I was about to say, is that actually only a silver score, but that's actually a straight up gold score right there. Now let's see, that's working like intended. So what do we need to do? We need to create some more city districts, and we need to create a royal forest, which I don't believe we know yet how to do. So I'm thinking this through a little bit, and I have a feeling I might need to upgrade my forestry deck in order to actually build that royal forest. And in order to do that, I'm just going to need to place down some lumberjacks. So considering I don't have anything that benefits yet from actually being close to a lumberjack yet, I might as well start placing some of these down in smart locations, hopefully. So let's see, if we place it down something like in the middle over here, actually up here is pretty awesome. 75 is I think the max score that we can get, but that would imply we need to be in a fully surrounded forest, which there aren't too many places, but we will have one of those locations over here. And then, for example, over here we have 65, which is pretty good. And there we go, we now have a forester available as well. So let's see, the forester actually receives his loses points on just based on what it's actually on top of. So we can place it basically on thickets or grass. That's ideal, and then we get 40 points, and it actually doesn't benefit from anything else. Does the lumberjack benefit from that though? Yes, so actually if we build a couple of foresters first, it will actually benefit more from that than being next to a forest. That is interesting. On top of that, we can actually combine 4 foresters into a new building that we don't know yet what this is. So there's a lot of new options and routes available to us thanks to this new building. However, what is very interesting is that we just discovered that this is actually the last missing piece that we needed for this more complex shape. And I have a feeling this might be the royal forest. I don't know, let's find out. Okay, so let's see, if we want to build this shape, we might as well use one of the lumberjacks that we already have available to us, because the foresters that we're going to be building in this shape won't be in range of the lumberjack, so that doesn't matter. The values of buildings actually don't upgrade once you build new stuff next to them. So only when you place down a building, the score is counted. So again, order matters, so you can't just upgrade buildings later on. However, you can merge them together, of course, later on, if that's what you want to do. So let's see, let's make a circle over here. I think that comes out really well, because this is an arid landscape, but that means that we can place a cottage on there pretty well. So if I look at this correctly, we should be placing a forester over here and a forester over here first. They don't care what they're next to, but they do care on being on a thicket, so that's a maximum score forester over there. Then the next things are to build are, I think, the cottages. So these benefit from being next to the forester, so that's 20 points over here, 15 points over here, 15 points over here. Not too exciting just yet, but then the well goes into the middle, and there we go. It is actually not the royal forest. Wow! But we just created a huge amount of new forest around this, because this is now a forest settlement. So it's a little bit of an investment, because this was not super efficient placing down initially. But now we created a huge amount of forest. On top of that, we actually got the ability to place down game. as well as predators, which I don't think is necessarily going to impact what we're building now. I don't think we have anything that in particularly benefits from that. But if you're playing with one of the other decks that, for example, is in the tutorial, that's all about like farming and hunting and things like that, then getting 4 game would be massive as a result of that as well. So let's see. We got forest on the 3 surrounding tiles in a 3 range. That's what you just saw happening. And on top of that, thicket on the surrounding tiles as well. So, yep, that was very much worthwhile. So now the real question still remains, what does actually create a royal forest? Maybe it's this combination with 4 of these foresters together, so we can place those down over here. That's 160 points plus 10 extra points for combining them. And yes, this is actually a royal forest, which is going to allow us to actually place down new forests. And as you can see, my hand is actually filling up really well as well. You can actually recycle cards as well. So if you get cards that you don't need, for example, the game and the predators that I just got, you can just recycle those. Now, I'm holding on to these for the moment, just in case we need them later on. But if you have cards like, say, for example, the remove resource that we don't really care about, you can recycle them, get some points, and work your way towards another draw as a result of that. So the royal forest actually allows us to place more forests, add some more forest on the surrounding tiles, so we can pretty much turn the entire map into a forest if we want at this point. So it's a really easy way to kind of, it kind of combines with itself, so starting to build more forest in a combined way, similar to what we've done over here with the more urban area, actually allows us to scale that up. Now, we are going to need quite a few more foresters in order to keep this up. So yeah, I am going to have to use a couple more of my draws and actually get access to that. Something to note is actually that every time you get an option to pick from these things, you won't necessarily always get the option to draw from the deck that you want either. Because I, of course, now want to draw from the Forester deck in order to get more Foresters. Forestry deck in order to get more Foresters, I should say. But I'm going to have to pick some of these other options as well, just to get them out of the way, and then get access to the Forestry pick once again. Okay, so that's the 3rd Royal Forest, and now I need to start placing some Lumberjacks down with the gold rating. That shouldn't be too hard. I have plenty of Lumberjacks, I think, now on reserve. Yes, 7 of them. And we need to create a forest settlement. Now, we already created one, and luckily that one counts, so that's useful. And on top of that, I just unlocked a new building in the forestry department as well. So now we have access to the sawmill. Sawmills apparently do not want to be close to other sawmills, but they do definitely want to be close to forest settlements, royal forests. And honestly, thinking about that, I should probably have placed these royal forests a little closer to the forest settlement. But if I place it down here, as you can see, one single sawmill can actually give us 115 points, and this is far from optimized, because if we can place down a couple more of these lumberjacks, for example, we can definitely get some more points out of that as well. Meanwhile, let me also think a little bit about the forest settlement, because we want to place down a couple more of these. I should have plenty, well, not plenty, but I do have a couple of settlement pieces as well, because I draw from the deck because I needed to, and I wasn't spending them, I was saving them in advance, so I knew I was going to probably need some of those later on. So we are going to need a couple of cottages. Where are we going to place that? I think we want to stick sort of close to the forest settlement, and maybe build one over here and one over here if we can fit it. There is some swamp in the way though, so we do need to take that into consideration as well. We can build probably one over here and then one over here as well. Okay, so let's see, 2 foresters over here, then we have the cottages in between. Did I do this correctly? I think I did. Not a massive score again on these, but now we place the well in the middle, and there we go, we have another forest settlement and a lot of forest on top of that as well. Now, let's see, that actually didn't gain us any of the lumberjacks because I used the lumberjack that was already there. But if I pick another lumberjack, it shouldn't be too hard to, as you can see, get another lumberjack going here. And does that leave us enough space for a sawmill? Maybe in the corner over here? Then that one is just out of reach, but we will get another forest settlement next to that. Actually, placing these too close together doesn't actually optimize the score for the sawmill, so that's interesting. But first things first, let's build another forest settlement. So I'm trying to finish this, what are we calling these again? These forest settlements over here, but I actually need one more cottage, which I'm not getting, and I'm out of draws. So in the meanwhile, that means I should probably focus on getting some awesome lumberjacks up and running. I should have a couple of those left. And actually placing them very close to the buildings we already have gives us pretty nice bonuses. Did the sawmill also benefit from being close to lumberjacks? Yes, it does. So, sawmills did not want to be close to other sawmills, so we can probably place one of them in between here in a moment. So maybe a sawmill over here, 105 points. That's not too shabby. That gives us another draw. We can't actually draw still from the deck that we want, so I don't know, let's just draw some more lumberjacks then. Now, there's nothing wrong with just placing down a couple of lumberjacks, let's say, over here. Well, maybe not go too wild. Maybe use some of the spaces we have over here. We can place a pretty decent lumberjack over here and get some points doing that. Although we definitely do need to make sure that we don't run out of space, because remember, the level is far from over and we've already used quite a bit of the map. Also, don't underestimate how valuable it is to use the other random things that you get in order to get yourself some more draws. As you can see, for example, over here, building some more of these houses very close to where I already have my keep, which is why I started building the cottages out here, actually gives me 95 points, 105 points, as you can see, a lot of points for just placing down a couple of these houses and then upgrading them into one of these city districts, which also helps me to advance towards one of the side quests that we have. So it gives me another 2 draws. I still can draw from the freaking community deck, or what was it called? Not the community deck, the other one, the settlement deck. Well, let's just build some more lumberjacks in that case. In the meanwhile, while I'm struggling to do what I want to do, I also got access to a couple of new buildings. So we have the market unlocked in the settlement thing now, and that actually wants to be close to the keep, which is over here. It also really wants to be close to pretty much any form of settlement. So it actually works pretty well with the 4 settlements we have over here, although it's not a too impressive score because it has nothing else going for it. Again, it doesn't want to be close to other markets as well. It does want to be close to city districts, which you have a lot of over here. So we could place it down here, but we also get bonuses from being close to a charcoal burner. And we actually have that unlocked as well. And that also wants to be close to either a royal forest or forest settlement. So placing one of those down over here, as you can see, 125 points. That's 135 even. Well, that's pretty awesome. But we could actually just place one of them over here. 45 points, not too impressive, but it does boost the marketplace that we can place down over here as well with a little bit. So 125 here for a marketplace is not too bad either. Then let's place one of these down over here. 135, is that the best I can get? Probably. Let me just double check. What does this want to be close to? Close to sawmills, royal forests, nothing in particular that we want to build. Maybe actually we could build another lumberjack or 2. Maybe. Is that going to be in the range? Nope. Nope, just outside of the range. Doesn't matter. Let's just, I don't know, place it down over here, I guess. There we go. That's a pretty decent charcoal burner. And what do we need to do next, by the way? We need to place down sawmills with a lot of points. And we can definitely do that because we can place down some more sawmills over here. Sawmills did not want to be close to each other, right? Nope. But they do want to be close to everything else we have going over here. So let's see. If we place it down over here, not too impressive. But if we place it over here, despite the fact... Was this another sawmill? This is actually not a sawmill. We still need to complete this. Can we complete that before we place this down? Probably, but we would need another village, which I still can't pick for some reason. There we go. Give me a cottage. There we go. That's a cottage. Did I just... Oh, we actually need a well as well. There we go. There we go. And then that's a lot more forest around there as well. And then if I place this down, that's actually not that much better than it was before, because remember, this only counts as one big tile now. So the individual tiles were actually giving me a pretty similar score compared to what I can get over now. But 125 points actually gets me halfway to where I need to be. Can I find another 125? Yes, I can. There we go. 2 buildings. Mission complete. And we actually unlocked the community deck already. I'm not entirely sure how it thought I would not do that before I got that other quest, but that's 2 quests done at once. Now we need to start placing taverns down with a gold rating. I already placed down several of those, but now we need to start focusing and seeing how we can actually manage to do that. Oh man, placing down taverns is actually not trivial, because I need several of those longhouses close in order to do that, but I already placed down some random taverns earlier, and all these longhouses are not really in a position where I can place down a tavern close by and still benefit from them. So that kind of means I need to build either a couple of new longhouses and or some wells, because that's the other thing that actually benefits greatly from being close to a tavern, or I should say the tavern benefits from being close to the well. Now that means I need several more of these cottages in order to actually build all of that, so that's going to be a thing. Oh, this is interesting. We actually just got a upgraded version of a market. This is just as far as I know, a random card that you can get every now and then. It is basically an overpowered version of the normal card. This has an increased range by 1, has actually additional influence, so it actually gets more points from everything around it. And, well, this is just a very easy way to get a monster score from a single card, as you can see. So 215 points from placing a market, for example, over here. However, I'm not going to do that just yet, because I do want to keep this in my back pocket for when I need it. And who knows, we might actually get a quest later on to place down a market and get some points with that. So let's just deal with the taverns before we do that. So that's another couple of longhouses over here, along with a well. That should be enough to hopefully get this particular tavern up to the max score, at least gold level. Let's see, taverns do not want to be close to each other, so the further I can build this away and still get the max score, the better. If I build it over here, can I place down another one over here? Yes, so this one will get 90, and this one is not a range of this one. So this, well, actually I should have built the other one first, because that was giving me more points. But this is at least one tavern with a gold rating, 3 to go. So while building towards the tavern, I actually got the option to pick a monastery as well. So other than just picking from one of your 2 decks, you also get these random other options, and every now and then there might be a special building in between these. For example, like in this case, the monastery. Now this heavily benefits from being close to a royal forest. It also benefits relatively well from being just on grass or stone. And in particular right now, it's very useful to be close to houses, markets, and things like that as well. Now, is this going to give me a monster score or anything? I don't necessarily think so. But if there's anything, and not really any of the other choices that you want to pick from, you might as well pick that, and then hopefully get a better choice on your next pick. In this particular case, do I actually want the monastery? So I am building towards some more taverns. I actually need another tavern, so I might as well just pick the community, because that might actually give me a tavern which I need. But normally giving them consideration to the other options that you might get, especially if it's a 5-star building like this, it's not necessarily a bad thing either. Now, I should probably build some bathhouses as well, because I've been stocking up on this, hopefully getting a quest for that, but that hasn't shown up just yet. So I think I am going to place down a couple of these at least, just to get some points. And, well, this is a gold one, so that's pretty decent. There's actually better options here as well. I'm going to hold on to that just for a moment. Placing down a couple of these actually gives me a little bit more freedom in terms of picking the next thing to place down. Oh man, I just got 15 bathhouses before I got the last tavern I needed. I actually got 2 taverns at the same go there. So I should be able to place down another gold one somewhere over here. 70 points, that's not bad. And yep, that's what I was afraid of. Now I got a quest to build a market with a gold rating. Luckily, I still have 2 of those, so we should be able to find some nice spots for those. So we have a spot for 140 over here. We have 90 over here. I don't think this is a particularly interesting area for it. Nope, doesn't look like it. I actually placed down the supermarket over here as already, so I was saving it, but I needed my points in order to get more draws. Well, let's go with this location and then this one, I guess. There we go. Now we need more city districts. Luckily the 6 we already have count towards these 10, and then we need to place, look, bathhouses. We'll have 15 of those, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem, hopefully. But first things first, let's build some city districts because the bathhouses actually benefit from having those close by. Now this is a very interesting example of not placing down too much random stuff, because this forester that I placed down kind of randomly in the early parts of the game is now getting in the way, because I now can't build another district over here because I don't really have the overlapping pieces I need in order to do that. Well, I can actually fit it in over here, I believe. But I could have fit another district in over here if this wasn't in the way. So that's all the city districts that we needed, and now the bathhouses shouldn't be too much of a problem, I believe. Let's start over here, because these are kind of these random slots we have. Hey, look, we can build a chapel now. That's another one. 2 more to go. Ooh, look at this. 225 points. Yes, please. That's giving us a huge amount of draws, actually, as well. This one is 150, 150. Yeah, let's go with 150, I guess. There we go. Now we actually need to build some more longhouses. Jeez, I thought I was done with those by now. Well, I guess we need some more cottages then. That's a lot of long houses, and as you can see, we've almost filled up about half the map now, and it's getting really crowded in here, but we haven't been doing all that bad. Now we actually need to start building some chapels, and I have one of these available now. This wants to be close to city districts mostly. Wells help, forest settlements help, but yeah, it's mostly wells and city districts. So hopefully I will be able to fit in a couple of these things over here. Chapels probably don't want to be close to each other. Nope. Exactly. Then the real question is, do I just place a couple of these down here? I could place one over here and one over here, but those would be in range of each other, so I might as well just slam it down here in the middle and get 190 points for that. It doesn't actually require me to get a gold rating or anything, it just needs me to build the chapels. I also got this super well over here, which is probably going to give us quite a few points. Well, actually, it's not that interesting. Although 75 points for a single well is not that bad. Anyway, let's focus a little bit on getting more chapels first. Oh wow, look at this. 355 points for a single chapel, just because we left some open spaces here in between all these long houses and city districts. Probably would have been even more if I had left myself some space over here. Actually, 130 points is not bad, but let's go for this monster score. Can we actually raise that even further? Let me check. So wells are actually really valuable. City districts, well, we can probably build another well over here. There we go, 75. oh, wait, hold on. If I place a well over... no, that's actually getting me a 0 score. That's probably not that interesting. Does this benefit from being close to taverns at all? I guess drinking and religion don't go too well together. Anyway, 385 points for a single one. That's pretty awesome, and now we can actually build a hospital as well. We still need to build another one of these. Do we have another one of these monster scores? 200, actually not that bad either. Nothing too impressive by the looks of it. It does benefit from these settlements as well, but not as much as from being just in the city. So yeah, let's go with the 200 score. I like that as well. And there we go. Now we actually need to place down the hospital that we just unlocked as well. And that is going to be the last main mission we need in order to complete this scenario. Now it seems like the first time you pick the deck that you just unlocked something from, you always get one of the new buildings. So that's something to keep in mind when you need this unlocked. Now let's look at the hospital. Once again, this wants to be close to cottages, longhouses, city districts. Actually, the fact that a single cottage can give it a 20 bonus is actually really interesting, because that means individual cottages can actually give this a massive bonus. Because remember, this counts, an entire district just counts as 25, but an individual cottage, which I could place several next to each other, each count as 20. Now, do I actually have cottages left? No, because I've been building all these long houses. But that is one way we could boost our score. However, let's not overcomplicate this. If we just place down in some of the open spots we have available over here. Nothing too oppressive just yet. Well. Look at that, 205. That's pretty decent. We'll already get a gold score for over 100 by the looks of it. But yeah, 205. Let's go with that for our first hospital. I do think the developers took into account that at this point you might be running out of space, you might be running out of moves to do. I've been playing pretty optimal. As you can see, I have plenty of cards in my hand still to build. But you actually get a bonus score from keeping your cards on hand as well at the end of the game. Although you might actually get a higher score just by placing them down and just kind of filling the area. But either way, I again just need to place a hospital, and I doesn't really seem to care where I place it. Actually, placing it right next to the existing hospital gives me more points than putting it out there. But as you can see, good work! You've successfully mastered all challenges that you've faced, and thanks to your determination, your kingdom has once again grown. Now new endeavors are waiting for you, so we basically unlocked the next scenario. But we're not entirely done with this one either, because as you can see, there are still optional challenges to complete and keep building. We need to place down more charcoal burners, sawmills, etc, etc. However, I think this first look has been more than long enough and should have given you a pretty good impression for how this game works. It is a lot more challenging than it might look at first glance. It's actually really enjoyable. It's a nice little thought challenge, and it's really zen to play as well. So I can highly recommend this game to you if this is the type of game that you like. If you're still here, you're awesome. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.